where there was, it was towards the end of the dodgeball night. There were just a couple of kids left. I was one of them. Doug was one of the teachers and parents that was still in. And he was determined to get me out. I was dodging throws from him for like a solid 20 minutes, and he just kept throwing them at me. Would accidentally hit someone else, but was dead set on hitting me. And there was a point where someone else threw a ball at me. I caught it, and I was close to the line up front, and I caught it and was distracted, and Doug took that as the perfect opportunity to throw at me. He had 2 different balls in his hands. So he throws one, and I very quickly blocked it with the one in my hand, but when I blocked it, I slipped and fell on my back. And I just kind of like looked up at him and then like dead fished. And he put the other ball in his hand and kind of like gave me this look of like, what are you doing? And then he hit me and got me out. And when we were driving home, he looked at me in the back seat and was like, what was that? Like, you could have still gotten up and ran and tried to block it or something. And I was like, I don't know. I just figured if I played dead, you'd go after someone else. I have a lot of little moments like that with Doug, and I feel grateful that I have them. I think you develop a lot of unique memories being around someone as an adult, but then you also have unique opportunities to develop memories with them as a kid growing up, and I am extremely grateful for those memories. I'm grateful for the things that he taught me. Like I said, he taught me a lot about guns, and I got very interested in engineering and real life things because of the things that he would mention about his work. And I'm grateful that all of you could be here to support my mom and to express your love for Doug. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to try to not take too much time. I actually wrote it down. This way I can stay on track. I appreciate the words so far today and just the feeling and just the excitement of celebrating Doug's life. And I hope that my perspective of Doug might show you a side of him that maybe some of you have wondered about. And we've spent quite a few times with him and his wife and Jill, and just, and I'll share a couple of those moments today. But when most people think of Doug, okay, one thing that comes to mind almost immediately is horsepower. You can't separate the two. He walks around with the motor almost everywhere he goes. Now, 8 cylinders, loud engines, racing, building, tinkering, pushing limits. Doug and I shared many great conversations about motors and racing. It was always enjoyable, but there's something I enjoyed even more, and it was our conversations about Jesus Christ. And I had some rare opportunities to visit with him, and I'd like to share a couple of those today. You see, Doug once told me he made a deal with his wife. He said, and this is coming from Doug. He says, we made a deal early on. She could have her church as long as I could have my hot rods or race cars. Is that right? So it is validated. That was said. So, and he always said that was a win-win in their relationship. So at first, church may have been Jill's thing, okay? But over time, Doug felt the Spirit himself and embraced it in his own way. Some of my favorite talks with Doug weren't about cars. They were about our Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. and about how the church had touched his life and the members of the church had touched his life. But the thing I believe really resonated with Doug, something he felt deeply, was the power of the priesthood and the gift of the priesthood blessings. And I had the opportunity to visit their home on many times and have those conversations. As many of you know, during the course of his illness, especially as the brain tumor worsened, Doug's mobility began to decrease. His world, once filled with motion, speed, and precision, became harder to navigate. I had the rare chance to accompany Doug to a car show during the later stages of his illness. While we were there, Doug met a young lady who was also battling a brain tumor. She brought with her kind words and thoughtful humor that, frankly, was just what Doug needed that day. A few moments later, that very same young lady offered Doug a ride in her golf cart to get back to his car. Afterwards, Doug and I sat in the car for a few minutes. He shared a simple but powerful thought with me. He said, "You know, Aaron, the Lord places people in our path when we need them the most." Now, for many of us, this might seem like a small gesture, but for Doug, this was a small miracle. At that point, the walk to our car, would have been a tremendous effort, a true feat. And yet, it was as if the Lord whispered, "Doug, you've walked enough for today. I've got you covered." Even more powerful, that brief ride gave Doug a moment to connect with someone who truly understood what he was facing. They engaged words of encouragement and faith, each helping to lift one another. To me, that moment perfectly illustrates the tender mercies of the Lord. Small, personal, and timely. And I believe Doug knew it too. He had a way of recognizing those little moments of grace when they happened. And while I share this story about Doug, I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to speak about someone who walked this entire road beside him, and that's Jill. It was one thing to endure personal illness. It is another thing to entirely stand as a steady companion and caregiver, to carry both the weight of your own grief and the strength required to lift someone else. And Jill did that. It must have been unimaginably hard to watch Doug's decline. There were moments, I'm sure, where she wanted to cry, but instead she smiled. Moments when exhaustion set in, but she pushed through. She showed up for the hardest days of her life with love and grace. And Doug knew it, and he felt it, and we all saw it. Jill, your devotion and courage honored Doug's life every single day, and it honors his memory still. Now, Doug had many such miracles along his journey. I believe he now rests, having crossed the finish line of his life, and I believe the Lord was there at the final lap, ready to greet him with open arms. I'll miss our talks about cars, but I'll miss more the brotherly talks we had about Christ. And I look forward to the day when we can have those conversations again. And I appreciate it. Thank you for these few minutes. Thank you, Jill.
I didn't know that we were going to get to talk, so I just found out. I have two things. First thing, Doug was the person who taught me how to play poker. He's blackjack, sorry. He supported my gambling addiction. No, I'm just kidding. We would go on campouts, family campouts, and I'm pretty sure everyone says Shay was his favorite, but I think I was his favorite. Because he would bring candy, and we would gamble with candy. And I feel like that was really the first kind of bonding moment for me and Doug. Sometimes he'd go fishing with us, but that was the main thing he did. We'd always go camping. he loved to laugh, especially if it was laughing at me, not with me. But I had a pretty cool experience. Hopefully I don't cry. But I was at work on the day that he died, and I was going to go visit him the next day, and Nash called me, my little brother, and he said, "Hey, I think you should probably go over there today." And I don't know why, I was pretty busy. And I said, you know what, he's probably right. So I got off work around 4, and I went straight there. And I just got to talk to Doug, and he didn't really listen. I kind of teased him a little bit because there was no teasing coming back at me. But we talked about cars. We talked about shooting. I told him about my life, how it was hard, how it was good. And then I thanked him. And afterwards, I went, kind of kept going with my day. And I got a text that said he died. And the tears started rolling, but all of a sudden they stopped. And I realized that I was so grateful that I got to be there. I was so grateful that I guess my heart was just full of gratitude. I was just happy. And I learned a valuable lesson from him. And I never thought I'd get to tell him, but I'm sure he's here today. So thanks, Doug.
That Doug plays with me. He always plays catches. We go on walks together. And he plays, like, he helps me do stuff and plays board games.
I wasn't planning on sharing because I'm gonna cry, and I didn't want to cry. I'm not usually the crier. We definitely did not make Doug's life easy when he married my mom. Yeah, I'm sure Doug thought he had some hard stepchildren, but something that I'm so grateful for is he loved my mom, and he was the best adventure partner for her. I know we let my mom down because none of us like to ski, and if you know my mom, she loves skiing. But Doug was able to do that and be that person for her. He always was up for an adventure and always made sure that my mom had fun and got to go out and live like a young woman still. I just want my mom to know how much that we love Doug, and we're grateful for him. And I know he loved you. And I know that he was so grateful for everything you did for him. He knew he did not make it easy for you, but he knew how special you were and how lucky he was. And I just wanted to let you know that, and I hope you never have any guilt or ever have any second thoughts about how he felt about you. That's it. Love you, Mom.
I might cry. We'll just have to see. And don't worry, Sam, I became Jill's skiing partner. When Doug stopped skiing, I was there. So we had a fun, good year or two. I'm going to talk about two things that haven't quite been mentioned that I think were a big part of Doug. Number one was Max. When Jill and Doug first moved down, I don't remember what age I was, but it was kind of the first I ever had heard of my Aunt Jill, if I'm being honest. She had... all I knew was she lived up in Tooele and she had dogs. That was what I knew about my Aunt Jill. But then she moved down here, and they lived in a trailer by our house while they were finding a house down here for a little while. And that's when I met Doug. But again, I was little, so of course I wasn't really paying attention to Aunt Jill and Uncle Doug. What I cared about was Max, because Max was... You probably all knew, if you knew Doug, you knew Max. Doug loved Max. And when they first moved down here, he was the most energetic, big dog, would pretty much bully us kids. But Doug was always there, and Doug, I was kind of scared of dogs at first. I loved that Max was there, but I was kind of scared of him. But Doug taught me how to kind of be around Max. I think there was one time when Doug tried to get me to ride Max. And I was like, "You're going to do that to your own dog?" He was like, "Oh, he's a tough old boy." Anyway, I loved that I was able to be with Doug, and he taught me how to not be afraid around Max. He taught me how to love Max. And Max was there always. He was always Doug and Max. And then the second memory I have of Doug, so Jill and Doug used to come to our Sunday night dinners a lot, and Doug would kind of sit down, and he didn't really talk unless he was talked to. He would kind of sit and observe, but when you talk to him, he would have plenty to say. He'd talk your ear off. And there was this one Sunday where there was so many people at the house, and I was overwhelmed. I was like, man, there are so many people. I only know probably half of them. I don't want to be here. But then I sat down next to Doug, and I was like, "So you worked in the military, right?" And he was like, "Well, it's kind of a branch of the military, or I don't know exactly what it was." And then for I think it was 2 to 3 hours. 2 to 3 hours. So Doug answered my questions. I just hammered him with questions, and questions. I was just so curious. I was like, because he talked a lot about ammunition. He talked a lot about Japan. He talked a lot about people he knew. And I have no idea how he lasted that long. But it was so special to me. I learned so much, and I love learning. And I learned things that I had never even known existed that night, just talking to Doug for that long. It would probably be my favorite memory, just because I got to know him so well, and he was so patient, and he was so willing to be there with me when I didn't want to be there. And I don't think he wanted to be there either, if I'm being honest. So we were in the same boat. But it was really, really special to get to learn with Doug. Thank you.
It's surprising how much all of this really rings true. I have been hit in the face with one of his ice balls. They were not snowballs. And basically, and let the record show that I am 2 for 2 on Campfire Skittles blackjack games with Doug. That's where I learned as well. I just have an experience with Doug that I wanted to share. I was in high school, and I turned 16, and my parents were amazing, and they decided that they would buy me a car. And they found a Jeep that was about to get sent to the junkyard, but they bought it off him for $500. I bragged about that Jeep because it could make more sounds than a piano. And it had a hard time starting. And me being a high school student with like $20 to my name, couldn't really afford to send it to a mechanic. And so Doug was able to help me out. He didn't ask, it wasn't even, it was something that he was happy to do for me. I just brought it up to him and he just took it on for no reason at all. Like he didn't have to, and he just really decided, hey, I'm going to be a really amazing uncle and mechanic to my nephew for basically no reason. I brought him the car and I showed him, hey, this is broken, this is broken, this is about to fall off, and it makes this weird noise. It looks like some weird fluid's coming out of this box here. But the problem right now is that it's not starting. And so me and him were lucky enough to probably spend, I don't know, every weekend for like 2 months just trying to get this thing to start. And it was awesome to be able to see how patient he was with me, because I didn't know what I was doing. And then it seemed like every time we would fix something, something would break the next day. And I just am very grateful that I was able to have that experience one-on-one with Doug, and I was able to see really the best of him, because he was so patient with me, he was so kind, and he was doing it just purely out of the goodness of his heart, because he wanted to. I can't imagine how happy he is now. And I'm so grateful for all that he did for me, and for the uncle he was for me. Thank you, Doug.
I'm Doug's nephew, and I have 2 memories that are like really special to me. One of my favorite memories is when I was a little girl. We were going to go to Lulu's, but we couldn't. But then he was like, how about let's go get dirt and worms? And I was like, that doesn't really sound good. I don't really want dirt with worms in them. But then, like, Aunt Jill and Uncle Doug were like smiling, and my parents were like, okay, let's do that. And so I was like, okay. And it turned out to be chocolate ice cream with Oreo crumbs and gummy worms, and I still have it, and it's like so good. And one of my other memories is we were playing Play 9, and they were the one that introduced it up to us, and Uncle Doug just kept winning, and we couldn't, like, stop him, I guess. And then we were like, okay, he's not going to win this round, we're going to win. But then he won. But we all laughed and talked, and it was a really fun time. And I know he will always be with me and us, and he's always watching. And I love him so much, and I'm so glad he can be my uncle and Aunt Jill can be my aunt.
Apparently, I'm Doug's niece. And Tate, you must be a natural. I'm probably 0 for 25 in blackjack. The heck, Doug? I thought I was special. I'd just like to share one of the memories about Doug. We were also going to get dirt and worms. I thought he was trying to torture me or something, but we were all going as a family. I think half of us knew what it was, half of us were scared. But we pulled in the parking lot, and what are the odds? Shay throws up on me. And so I have to go home and shower, but it was worth it. He got me a large. And I just remember all of us playing. We were all playing cards later that night, and he was just so happy to be with us and so grateful that he was there. And it was just amazing how inspiring he was. Even at the lowest times, he always could bring a smile. And don't worry, those are only some of the virtues he has.
My name's Scott. I'm Jill's youngest brother. I just want to share, it's evident, as you can see, Doug had a gift to love children, and I'm grateful for that gift. I think he liked me, but I know he loved my children, honestly. He did. They lived in Colorado Springs for a while, and he loved being with my kids. And he poured into them, and he poured into Spence's kids, and he loved his grandkids, and he loved his nephews and nieces. And that's where I saw him most happy, was teasing my kids and playing with them, and I'm grateful for it. They love him, they felt his love, and I know that he felt their love, and he blessed us a lot because of that.
I'm Amy. I'm Scott's wife, and we lived in Colorado Springs with Jill and Doug. And that was such a treat for us. And one of the things that they both offered they were the fun aunt and uncle. I think Scott and I were too tired to even think about doing anything fun. And they would play games, and they'd bring soda and junk food in the house. And Doug would wrestle with Andrew, who was girl trapped by sisters, as Andrew would say. And so Doug was a really fun uncle. And he I don't know how long ago it was, but he got a baseball poster signed by Cal Ripken Jr. And it was when he had the most home runs or something in baseball. And he gave it to Andrew. And he said, "You take care of this, and someday it'll be really special to you." And Andrew still has that up in his room. So that was really tender. One time, Jill and Doug came to Crested Butte with us, and they went skiing, which was so fun and awesome. And you're just trying to keep up with them, even though they're more seasoned in life. So that was humbling. I'm just kidding. But the most impressive thing was that one of my kids had been throwing up all day, but my other kids desperately wanted to play card games with them. So I thought, there's no way they're going to condescend and come into our hotel room, and they did. So they were willing to be with us even when we'd had sick kids. So we really appreciated that. They would join us for Sunday dinners, and we would often have dinner and a spiritual message. And one thing I really loved about Doug is that he was always respectful of Jill's faith and our kids' faith, and he was very supportive. He would ask them questions about their lives, and just a support to us, and just very kind. So we love Jill, we love Doug, and we're grateful that this large man was a gentle giant and very kind. Thank you.
All right, I just want to set the record straight. Chance, I'm really glad that Doug made you feel like his favorite. No one stood a chance against Shay. Just like how I'm Dad's favorite. I'm just kidding. Anyways, I know that everyone here knows how much Doug loved his cars. And some of my best memories, actually, were with him in his cars. One time when I was in high school, me and a bunch of my friends decided it would be fun to go up to the Mesquite Car Show. And before this, I knew Doug loved his cars, but I never really, heard about him. I'd never, seen him really. And we got to go up there. And I'm not sure if I knew or not that Jill and Doug were going to be up there with his cars, but we either went and found them or ran into them, and we got to sit there and talk to Doug for a long time about his cars. But it was honestly so awesome to see, what he was so passionate about in his life, and we got to hear I forgot what it's called, the roaring engine that he was so proud of, and it honestly was a really, really fun day for me, and it's one of my best memories with him. But something else that has been super special to me is I love photography, and that's one of what I'm super passionate about. And one day, a little while ago, Doug asked if I could come take pictures of his Falcon for him, and I was like, oh yeah, of course I can. Totally nervous and freaked out because I was like, I've never taken pictures of a car before. What am I doing? And yeah, I went over, and he was super appreciative and super awesome about sitting there and telling me what angles would be great of this car that I knew nothing about. And then just a couple weeks ago, he asked if I could come take pictures of his Mustang for him. And that was really, I'm super grateful for that experience, but it was kind of hard because he was just more limited than he was the first time. But it was super special to me just because those are super fond memories that I had, and it was I got to do it with him again. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for that.
So I feel like a ton of the stuff I would have shared has already been shared. And really what Scott said is just right on, because Scott's family got the chance to live really close to him, and now they live really close to our family. And as you can see from our kids sharing, that it's been special. We're super thankful for that relationship. So the things, again, they're kind of repeats, but one story that I think is hilarious is when Max ate a golf ball and he was dying. And was it you that was out of town? Okay, so Jill was out of town, and so Doug took him to the vet, and they found out it was going to be a lot of money to remove this golf ball. And of course, Doug did it, and he blamed it on Jill, because he said Jill wouldn't want Max to die. And then Jill was like, I can't believe he did that. And anyway, it was, both of them were blaming each other, but they spent the money and they saved Max from the golf ball. So that was a good one. I'll kind of just go a little bit top to bottom, but we've talked about how he's blessed our children's lives and how he's so good to them. And really with all my oldest boys, they probably all have a mechanic. We did get our kids cars so that we could only pay liability-only insurance for them, but they didn't often run very well. And so Doug was kind of that guy. So he probably helped all my boys a lot. Recently, so Bryn is 17, and when she was turning 16, he came to us pretty excited because he had the ability to get us a really nice car for her, way nicer than the boys ever got. But it was because of Uncle Doug that she ended up with a lot nicer vehicle than them. And so that was sweet of him with her. And then we mentioned, yes, he has taught all of my children to gamble with candy, but that is a major pastime of our camping trips, which were many. And then one of my favorite memories and things is we took him to Lake Powell, and you have to know that Doug hates the water. So what are you gonna do in Lake Powell, right? But yeah, and the heat, that's true. So here's the great part about taking Doug to Lake Powell. He fixes all the stuff that breaks so that Spence doesn't have to. So Doug would just sit there and work on the jet ski that wasn't working right, and then he'd work on the boat. And then we had a major problem with a boat. Anyway, he was very handy that way. And we've had the dirt and worms experience and the throw up all at the same time. I mean, that's been mentioned a couple times. And then just Shay went through a unicorn phase, and Doug embraced that unicorn phase. And I will just tell you, any unicorn things he found ended up at our house, from books to T-shirts to, yes, ice cream. Anyway, he really helped foster that unicorn love at our house. And so honestly, if I see a unicorn, I think of Doug. So.
John Gibbons, Friends of the Henrys. We're grateful to be here with you guys. The family, you guys are awesome. We got to, my wife and I, Deborah will be after me, we had about just probably less than 3 years to get to know Doug and Jill. But I think you guys I'll try and wrap this one up in this way. There's 3 ways I saw with Doug. There's the right way, the military way, and there's Doug's way. The Doug's way was a combination of the above, but you didn't know always what was thinking in his head. He was thinking the whole time of something, and usually it was problem solving. It's like that goes on the back wall in the garage in this spot over there, and this must always come back to this spot because he's thinking ahead. If you ask him, oh, I've got to do this to the engine, and then I got to do something to the body, and I got to buy this piece of equipment, and I got to get this. So he wants everything in a certain spot so his job becomes easier and he can play around with his toys. So, and just as we're hearing today, he's always problem solving in his head, and that's really unique. Let's see. Oh, there was a question I was asking Doug. I said, look at all these accomplishments. You look at everything on the tables, and Doug, you never, I was talking to him. You never brag about it. You never, most people would say, look at this, I won this and I got that. That wasn't him. Okay, I just wanted to read this because I asked Doug this question, kind of like a life statement. I said, so where did you learn to become the person you are and your values in life? And he said, just receiving anything without putting any skin into the game has no value. Value of life is what you put in it. Sorry. Because this part hurts because he's not here, but he says, and sometimes you don't see that payback, but your life still has no less value. If Doug was here, he would say, your life has more meaning because it's what you're going to put into it, even if you're thinking about it. And when you do put time into it, you feel better and stronger, and you feel like you'll be able to handle all the problems that come across your way. So, I do want to add just a couple of things at the end. I asked Doug, and I think this is related to cars. I said, I had a Shelby at one time, and he was so easy to talk to because we talk about our mistakes. He'd say, I'm such a dummy. I put a dent in my Falcon on the hood. When I closed the hood down, I forgot I had something in there, and I put a dent, and I said, I dented my Shelby. And there's never this ego with Doug. He was so easy to talk to. He just made you feel relaxed. So I said, Doug, if I was to get a new car, my wife has got her own 2015 Challenger, and what would you recommend? And he says, well, right now, and it's still on Facebook, buy the 1970 Dodge Challenger RT Classic Coupe, Emerald Green, and it's in Dewey, Arizona, and it's on Facebook. And I looked it up, it's like, Doug, that's $75,000. But it's a classic, John. It's a classic. So, Doug, where would I go to eat if I'm going up to Salt Lake? And I think this is somewhere when Doug was with the family. He says, you got to try Dangerous Pretzel. You got to do the recipe for the Dr. Pepper Barbecue Sloppy Joes. You got to go to Archibald Restaurant, Gardner Village. I think it was the Mill it was called. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Deborah Gibbons, and I'm a friend of Doug and Jill's. I'm so happy to be here today. to celebrate the life of Doug and to be here with his friends and family. I'd like to begin with a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. Many people will walk in and out of your life, but only true friends leave footprints in your heart. I first met Jill Henry when she and I were appointed as partners in ministering, sisters in our Relief Society in our church, and we soon became friends. And then I wanted to meet Doug, and I liked them both so much, I wanted my husband to meet them. That's when we got to know them very well. Soon all four of us became very good friends. These are the things that I learned to know about Doug Henry. He loved his wife, he loved his family, he loved his dog, he loved classic cars, he loved his country, and he loved going very, very, very fast. Doug was always working on a car restoration project, and he loved to show you what he was doing. He had many stories about where and how he got the cars and the parts that he worked on. Doug was always up for helping someone, and he was known as a good human. When I needed help with my car, he came over himself and helped me and my husband instead of just telling us how to do it. I know most of the incentive was that he was kind, gracious, and giving. And the other part might have been the fact that I drive a muscle car. Doug was always brave and kind through his trials. He always smiled no matter what he was going through. I know that many people looked up to Doug in his personal and professional life, including me. He was a smart and kind, gentle giant who touched the lives of everyone who knew him. I will miss him. I would like to end with the poem called Safely Home. I am home in heaven, dear ones, oh so happy and so bright. There is a perfect joy and beauty in this everlasting light. All the pain and the grief are over, every restless tossing past. I am now at peace forever, safely home in heaven at last.
I was not going to do this because public speaking is not my thing, but I love Doug so much, and I'm so grateful that he got to be my stepdad. He was always so patient with me and kind, even when, I made choices that he didn't agree with. I just knew he was always there for me and super protective of me. I know Knox wants to come up, but he's sad and scary, but I just wanted to say for him, but what an amazing papa he was. Like, he really was the best. And the dirt and worms, that's the best, We had that all the time. Playing baseball with the kids. I mean, anytime they'd ask him to go to the park, he'd take him to the park. Anytime he wanted to play games, he'd play anything active. He really was amazing and so, so fun. Same, the gambling, that was his favorite, and I know the kids have so many good memories of that. Even when he was really sick, he would play the games and would really get into them, and he didn't feel good, but he did it, and towards the end, when the kids had to teach him how to play the games, he was amazing, and just doing it, I'm sure that was hard for him, and I'm sure he didn't want to. He was just amazing, and I'm so, so grateful that my mom married him, and he got to be our stepdad and our papa, and that's it. Knox, do you want to come up? Knox is one of his favorite memories is snowball fights too, but with the snowball fights in the back, he was definitely really intense with it. And sometimes scared him, but yes, but they loved it and they have good memories of that. Shoot. Okay. Yes, all right. We need a funny story. Madison. Oh, yeah.
So I'm Madison. I was very little when Doug moved next door to Jill, and obviously the rest is history, but I have a few memories, and hopefully Jill doesn't get too mad about this one, but when I think Doug was in Iraq and a box was sent to Jill, and the nurse Jill is took
You
it
should have asked.
to the hospital to get it x-rayed. And I mean, the rest is history, and they got married.
He didn't know that.
But Doug didn't know about that till this day, so that is funny. He definitely knows now, and so I'm so sorry. But Doug, I do remember how often he did love his cars and his Mustangs, and I remember him always needing me because he needed my little hands to help get like the cords through the car. And so he was just such a good person, and like he made like every little kid he came in contact with just feeling important and loved and needed. And so like I'm just so grateful that we've still been able to talk to them and be in contact and see him. And so yeah, there you go.
She did really well. I can't do that. So I had to write it down, or I tend to ramble. I could ramble for a long time. So, and so I'm going to read. You already did yours. You didn't even read it. That was really good. My son, who couldn't be here, Doug was a big influence in his life at a hard time. He sent me a little thing, and he wanted me to read it. Daniel, his name was Daniel. I don't want to talk on that. Doug was a truly significant presence in my younger years, and it all began with Mustangs. His mint condition cars were a testament to his incredible attention to detail and discipline. I'll never forget my run-down beater needing a new clutch, and how he, a guy who barely knew me, tirelessly poured his knowledge and tools into helping. I can still picture him walking back and forth from my house to his across the street over and over, dedicated to getting my car fixed. What's more, he later even went with me to help buy a new Mustang, the very one that I still have today. At a time when I lacked a father figure, what he did for me meant the world. I'll always remember his quiet, dry humor and the profound impact he had on my life. Gosh, I'm sorry. And so Doug, he became our neighbor. I first met Jill the day she moved into Tooele, across the street from me. She became my best friend, and still is my best friend. And then she moved. Shame on me. And we're still just the same best friends. We don't need to talk often, but we pick up right where we left off. And so Doug was our first neighbor. That's how I first met Doug. And then he and Jill started dating. And from the beginning, he had this warm teddy bear feel. So gentle and easy to be around. Over time, he became such a big influence in my kids' lives. He made us all feel so welcome and so cared for. I watched Jill light up with him. And it was clear how good he was for her. He truly was a blessing in all of our lives. And he always loved my cooking. It made me feel so good. I'm so glad we came down a week or two ago and seen him. And he was still that teddy bear guy. And we will love and miss him. Maybe we'll see you more often. Love you, Doug.
So I'm Chris. I'm Jill's younger sister. One much younger, a whole 15 months younger. Something that hasn't come up yet is Jill and Doug actually eloped to Las Vegas. And I remember when I heard that, I didn't think it was the greatest idea ever in the history of the world. And I was really protective of her, and she'd had some heartbreaks, and I was really worried about that. And it just seemed a little quick. And yet, what a great decision. That was a win. That was such a great decision. It was one of those things where, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. Jill has always been someone who has just really thrived in having fun and adventure, and like just part of the things that make her happy and bring her joy in life is adventure and recreation and sports and skiing and traveling and all of those things. And when Doug came into her life, she just found this perfect wingman, and he provided this really awesome stability and structure that was this jumping off point for these adventures that I saw just brought so much happiness. And he was game for going and traveling and skiing and camping and pretty much everything. Didn't love Lake Powell, if I remember right, but most things he was game for it all. But he also just brought into her life, kind of through his organization and quiet strength and stability, just this wonderful foundation that then allowed them both to just be able to have these wonderful adventures and then come back to kind of just this place of stability. I don't know, I'm not saying it very well. But one funny memory I have is I went to go visit them when they lived in Germany, and if you're not aware, the Autobahn is in Germany. And if you haven't picked up, Doug felt the need for speed at all times. And so one day they were so kind and gracious in taking me around to all these beautiful, beautiful, picturesque places in Bavaria. And then one day we had a day trip to Karlovy Vary in the Czech Republic. And I remember we got on the Autobahn and he was driving, and just that, it hitting higher and higher and higher, and them telling me kind of the interpretation of like kilometers versus miles and all this. And anyway, just thinking, okay, we're good. Anyway, I felt a little nervous, but he was thriving and he was loving just being able to drive as fast as he wanted to on there. And so anyway, the other last thing is just I had a really sweet experience a month or so ago, just when we were there, asking him a lot about his life and his just his life, as we were kind of knowing that the end was close and wanting to prepare to have information for the obituary and stuff. And it was just really sweet to hear him talk about just his appreciation for Jill and for the sacrifices that she was making, and his desire for her to be okay. And that was just really tender to someone who loves Jill to just be able to hear him, because he was pretty understated. He wasn't super effusive in the way he spoke. And anyway, it was really neat to hear him talk about that, and to also just hear him, talk about the people in his life that and the memories that he had that were really important to him. And so anyway, I'm so grateful for that impulsive yet awesome decision to run to Las Vegas and get married, because he's certainly been a blessing in all of our lives. So anyway, thanks.
Well, I'm the biggest guy in the room, and I'm the biggest boob in the room, too. So, my name is Cliff, and I'm a dad and a stepdad, and my heart is full. From listening to the love that each of you have shared today. I have the blessing to be able to work with Doug and Jill. They're great teammates of ours in the pharmacy. I remember our interview with Doug. We call it the conference room, but it's about 5 by 5 feet is all. And there's 3 chairs in there. And when Doug and I were in there with our HR girl, Doug and I were like this. It was like Fred and Barney Flintstone, right? We were just 2 big guys in this little tiny room. And I could tell right there at that moment, the love from Doug just exudes from him. And we all know that. And he was such a great example to our team. We have a lot of young people on our team, and he is just like the big Papa Bear. He's just this gentle giant, as we've heard already. And he was an important, integral part of our team. Just a great example at all times. And I'll just share with you real quick about Jill. Jill is one of the strongest girls I've ever met. And being a caregiver, some of us know, is the hardest job ever. We don't volunteer for this job. We don't sign up for it. We don't seek it. We don't want it. Yet it's such a blessing. We have that person to take care of us when we really need that in our lives. Jill, you're a great example to us. So, from our little pharmacy family, we love you guys. And by extension, we love all of you too. And so thank you for sharing, Doug, and even Jill, now and in the future, with our team.
My name's Steve, and Doug's my friend. As we reach out to comfort the Henry family, we must all remember the moments we spend with our families. It's important to recognize the value of every friendship. My favorite time spent with Doug was working in his shop, talking about cars we loved, cars we owned, and cars we wish we still had. We both agreed that these old cars really drove like crap, and we would laugh about it, but we loved those old cars. No one here can deny one of the most memorable traits that Doug had to offer. It was his boyish grin that gave him into a eureka moment as we both agreed whatever we were wrenching on in his shop was looking successful. Doug enjoyed the challenge of perfection, and that is how I will remember him.
So I didn't have the opportunity of knowing Doug very well at all, but I do know Jill. She is part of a very prestigious club. Some of us are here tonight. We are the Dixie Springs Pickleball Slayers. We kick some butt. And what is really interesting to me is, I just think what's so awesome is there was this window of time between when all the different illnesses that Doug had battled, where he was finally feeling better from all the treatments that he'd had, and this is before he found out about the brain cancer. There's like this window of time where he decided that he was going to come learn how to play pickleball with us. And we, he loved, I can tell now that I'm hearing all these stories, he loved a challenge. He loved to win. He didn't win at pickleball. Let me tell you, we were not easy on him. And we just had to keep reminding him to back up and get out of the kitchen and don't go forward and don't go back. He's so big, he doesn't move that fast. He was feeling better, but he was still a little unsteady, and he's just a very large person. So, but he did it because he loved Jill and he wanted to spend time with her and he wanted a new challenge and he wanted to be outside. And even though he didn't win, and to be fair, he did have a brain tumor, and so maybe we could have been a little easier on him, but he played until he couldn't, and we'd always see him. I remember Jill told us that he had this desire after he found out everything that was going to happen. He said, I'm going to live the next 5 years, and I know he didn't make it that long, but every week, every weekend, every opportunity he took in this last year of his life, he took to see his family, to go on trips, to be on adventures, to be there with Jill, to just be in all of these relationships. And I don't know any of you guys all that personally, and I really didn't know Doug all that well, but I do know that he loved his family. And you can just tell from the love that's here and from all of these stories. And I had fun playing pickleball with him. And we love you, Jill, so, so much. And we're always going to be here for you. We're your pickleball family.
This is just letting you guys know we have about 20 minutes left. So if anyone has a funny story that they want to share to close us out with, now would be the time. Emphasis on funny. You guys are making my mom cry. Great.
supposed to be funny. Okay. It's not very funny. I had a short time to get to know Doug, but on the occasion that I'd be over at his house working with on one of his Mustangs, I'd be under the car with a tool and a flashlight, and he'd be on top of the car with a tool and a flashlight. And our conversations would go something like, then he'd explain it to me like, and I'd understand. So I will miss those brief moments with Doug and say that we'll continue to keep an eye on Jill. So, thanks.
I'm Jill's dad. As I thought about Doug's life, something that kind of settled on my brain was I thought, how would I feel facing cancer? What would go through my mind, and how would I deal with that problem? And then I came to the realization that Doug faced it 3 times. He had 3 different kinds of cancer. And as I thought about that, I thought, I salute his courage, because he did man up to it and to face it. And it was a tribute to me to see and to realize what courage it took for him to continue on. And I salute Doug for that.
I'd be remiss if I didn't share one story. And I hesitate to do this with Ross, my bishop during my impressionable years, sitting so close. First of all, I'm a little surprised that I'm the only, well, I thought I was the only one that had any car discussions with Doug, but apparently not. So we had a trip to Lake Powell, speaking of Lake Powell, and we tried to get Doug to surf, but we were unsuccessful. But we did get Josh, 25, to give it a go while Doug watched in amazement. Okay, to my main story. Jill was kind enough to put on some parties, Christmas parties and other things at her house. And I should back up. Jill and I were born at the same time in the same neighborhood. And we shared a lot of experiences growing up together. And I don't know that my young self didn't recognize that she was even a girl. She was just my buddy. And we did a lot of things together. But as we got together for these parties, and a party in particular in Tooele, we went out and admired Doug's Mustang, I think it's the same Mustang that you have here. As we were coming back in, there was a bookshelf in the hallway, as I recall. and we were looking at the various books. If I might have the story a little bit wrong, Jill, but correct me if I'm close. And there was a book on the bookshelf about Mustangs, believe it or not. And I opened it up, and it was an illustrated book, as I recall, with stick figures in it of all the extracurricular things you can do in a Mustang. And I'm not sure that book was supposed to be there while we were at that party, but I found it, and we've had a good time with that story for a long time.
My name's Sylvia Anderson Richens. I sometimes forget who I am, and I'm married to Jill's dad. We came down to visit Doug and Jill not too long ago. And we were talking, the things that Doug and I shared just between us, not with anybody else. You understand this was personal relationship we had, was one, Germany and German food. Because my father was in the military, we spent 5 years there when I was a child. And two, fast cars. And we were just talking, I have a little race car, and he liked race cars. And I said, Doug, you know, some people don't understand that need for speed. And he said, no, they just don't get it. And I said, if you understand it, you don't have to explain it. If you don't understand it, you can't explain it. And I appreciated there were some things we just didn't have to explain. He was just kind to me. So I said, Doug, Jill's got a lot of plans. And he says, I know. I don't want to do any more. I said, I think you're tired, aren't you? And he said, yeah. I said, well, you've led the life that you wanted to lead, didn't you? He said, yes. I said, you've had an exciting life. You've traveled a lot. You have adventures. You have race cars. I said, what is there still that you want to do? And he said, I just want to be sure that Jill's taken care of. I'm doing everything I can for her. I thought that was very tender, and those things kind of describe him to me. He loved his life. He was happy about his life. He felt meaning. He had purpose. He had adventure. And he loved Jill. And that spirit that he had was kind of evidence of that big body, that he is just a very special man. So I am very grateful that he was a part of my life, and I will not forget him.
So, hi again. I guess I'm just going to be closing this out really quick before Spence does. As it's been shared a lot here, Doug was very good with children, and he has his own family, and Ross and CG, and they're both, and Tanya, sorry Tanya, and he has a very deep love for them as well, and I didn't get to see them very often just because of my life situation and also because of their life situations, but I could tell that Doug did love them very deeply, and I had good experiences with Doug and with them. It was mentioned by my mom the other night that someone had said to her that Doug is a bit of a closeted foodie, and as someone who got to benefit from that, I wholeheartedly agree. I have a memory of one of the times where we were traveling in Germany with CG up in Garmisch for my mom's work, and I don't remember what she was doing. I just remember that she was busy with like a meeting or something, and the three of us were kind of like trying to figure out what to do. And Doug was like, let's go get some food. And so we just kind of aimlessly drove around. And then we ended up at this family restaurant where they had homemade schnitzel. And so we all got a plate of that. And I just remember the three of us just, it being very quiet, and you could just hear our forks scraping on the plate. And we're like barely talking. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm not a huge fan of cooked carrots, and half of this plate was cooked carrots, and I wolfed that down. It was probably some of the best cooked carrots I've ever had in my life, and I just remember all three of us sitting back in our chairs as we finished our meal, and Doug going, "The cooked carrots, they were very good," and me and CG immediately went, yes, they were. I have some gratitude to Doug for how patient he was because, also as was earlier mentioned, as my sister Sam liked to slander her siblings, that none of us would ski with them. I tried to ski with them. I liked it at first, but while we were also in Garmisch, both me and Doug found out for the first time that I am deathly afraid of heights. So as you can imagine, a young 8-year-old with Doug screaming bloody murder on the side of the Alps because I'm sitting there staring down the mountain, and he was laughing, but also was very patient in that he was understanding that I was afraid and helped me get back down the mountain. There was another thing that Doug liked to do, and it was to grab the young kids, hold them down. We had another Labrador before Max Trooper, and he would smear peanut butter all over our face and let the dog come and lick it off while we freaked out. Like Max, he very much loved that dog, and he would laugh so hard. He would laugh so hard. He would just hold us down, and I remember when it would happen to me, and I was freaking out, and I'm like 7, 8 years old, and I have this big dog panting in my face, huge slobbery tongue licking all over my face because I have peanut butter just smeared around my face. Doug was very patient, very humble, and loved food, and he obviously was a prankster. And I am grateful for the memories that I built with him, those small moments. I have a dozen more, but I don't have the time to share them with you guys. Just want to express how grateful we are that everyone is here and everyone that shared. Thank you very much.
Okay, just going to leave you with one last challenge, invitation, I think, invitation. I know that Doug loved Jill and was very worried about her. And each of you, after you leave this day, are going to be doing something a week from now, a day from now, a month from now. And there's going to be something that happens that reminds you of Doug. For me, every time I see a Dixie Meats sticker on the back of somebody's truck, I'm going to think of Doug. And I'm going to immediately text my sister. Because Jill needs us. I'm sorry, Jill. So when that happens, please have the discipline to send a message to my sister, to let her know you love her and that you're thinking about her. Unfortunately, Jill and I, we share trauma together. So I'm the brother, she's the sister, and that it always happens when we're together. So if we're together with you, be careful. But anyways, just again, like Josh said, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting our family. And we love you. Do you want to say anything? Well, you hugged everyone, so thank you for being here.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be a part of it. Good service.
It's good to see you. I kind of enjoy that. I was gonna say I kind of feel bad because the grief part of it, I kind of wanted to shut down. And it was just, I didn't want to tell my mom, but I got this like feeling, this spiritual feeling where I was like, he's not gonna, like he might be here longer than what we initially did, but it was gonna be
Along with what you see, I feel like really
that was the same feeling I got. I was giving my mom a blessing when it first happened. And the feeling that I got while giving the blessing was that he had such busy. So I was going to LDS Business College. I didn't end up finishing it. I'm looking at different pathways. Trying to write a book. Well, it was. I was originally trying to write a book about pets, and then that wasn't working out. And then I'm kind of wanting to write a book, but it's not happening. That's kind of what's been happening, is I'm writing a whole lot of nothing and just waiting for it to like start making sense. I work part-time at a seminar. So I work at a bar that is also a theater. And so I like working there, it's fun. And my job is like half bouncer, half usher. So like I'm helping people. A bit wild, you're like, yeah, it's been nice though, because like most of the people that come there are really well behaved. And the whole time I've been working there, I've always sorry, I have really bad allergies right now. It was so weird because I went to Lubbock, Texas to see my cousin. It was his wedding. And then as soon as I came back, I got like all the allergies. I was doing completely fine too, and then I came back and all of a sudden dying. It's still on. Yeah. That's what he wanted.